Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down on.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Strikes and Submissions here. I'm your host, Dorian Wright, along with my co-host, Michael Daly. Mike, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, Dorian. I hope you're well. I know the weather in New Jersey is crazy, so hope everyone stays safe and enjoys the show and all the other festivities tonight.
Of course, and first and foremost, make sure you guys follow TWSN. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We're almost at 900. Let's hit that tonight. Instagram, follow us there, and Twitter as well. And download the mobile app. You can get all of our articles. We have some articles we're going to discuss, throughout the shows. You can catch up with that on that. And we're going to get right into it because we have a lot of topics. The TJ Dillashaw return is in full effect. He's the number one contender. He beat Corey Sandhagen. Mike, it was a very controversial decision. I know you had your thoughts on it, but just the floor is yours, my man. What do you think about that?
It was a great fight. That's the best way to put it. You can be upset that Corey Sandhagen didn't get the decision or TJ Dillashaw got the decision, but at the end of the night, the fans were treated to a spectacular bout. You have to give credit where credit is due to TJ Dillashaw. Coming off of a 2.5-year layoff and facing a killer in Corey Sandhagen, and you go through hurting your knee in the fight, you get a cut, you're dealing with a ton of other things in the lead up to the fight, and you managed to win. Not only win, but you kept it close throughout, and you did enough to get the job done. Personally, Dorian, I had TJ winning 3-2. I had it a very, very close 48-47 decision. I just thought he had more control by latching on to Corey's body. Corey was just giving up his back a little bit too much, not trying to do a ton of striking. When he did strike, he would do flying knees or he would just give his back up trying to do spin kicks.
The spins I think are really what hurt him.
And that's exactly what TJ was waiting for. He was waiting for that back to be open, and he found several moments, and that's what won TJ the fight. You cannot be upset at that. And now TJ, he's the rightful owner of a number one contender spot to fight the winner of Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan.
Absolutely, man. And I feel like if you can come back after a layoff and beat the number one contender, I don't care what the layoff was for, you're now the number one contender. That's how it goes. So I think I also gave the fight to TJ. I had TJ winning the fight. Obviously, we were on vacation last week. We didn't have a show about it, but I think that TJ had the wrestling advantage, and I didn't see how he'd close the distance and get inside on Sandhagen. But in reality, Sandhagen kind of made it easy. I feel like Sandhagen allowed him to pressure him the entire fight, which the judges see as control, octagon control. And I think later on in the championship rounds, Sandhagen hadn't really been there before. TJ's a champion, two-time actually bantamweight champion of the world. So he knows about those championship rounds. He knows how deep you have to dig, and he was willing to dig deeper. Obviously, Sandhagen, I think, hit him with cleaner shots, but TJ was walking through all of them. And I think he was almost trying to finish the fight too much as a highlight with the spins, as I pointed out before, as opposed to really trying to win rounds and get decisive moments. I think TJ had, a couple takedowns. Granted, he gave up his back almost every time to deny the takedown. So I don't know how that's good defense. But then again, people can say TJ didn't really do anything, even though he threatened the takedown all night, which I think is doing something. But yeah, overall, I think the judging was okay. I do think the rest of the card, the judging was kind of crazy, but hopefully we don't have that type of judging frenzy after another fight night, because I didn't like to see that, I don't know about you. I don't like when the judges get slandered.
I don't either, because the judges are such an integral part of the sport. Whether you like it or not, they play a major factor. So look, that's a problem. And shout out to Nader. Shout out to you watching in Jordan, everyone else watching wherever you may be watching.
Right. That's love. 2:10 in the morning. But so moving on, we can move on along to this fight night's main event. We have Uriah Hall up against Sean Strickland here. And this was an interesting matchup. I think personally, not to go overly in depth in it, but I think Sean Strickland decisively gets a win against Uriah Hall. I think it's a stand-up brawl for 5 rounds, maybe a finish. I feel like if there's a finish, I feel like Uriah gets it though. What are your thoughts about the fight, however?
I don't see this fight going to the ground. I see this being a stand and bang type of fight like you just spoke on. The difference in this fight though, Sean Strickland is going to try to brawl. Uriah Hall has to be careful because if he tries to engage in a brawl, I think that heavily favors Sean Strickland. And there could be a point in time where Strickland gets a finish if that's the case. I have Uriah Hall actually winning because I just think he's going to be measured. The one problem Uriah Hall, I think, is going to run into, if he hasn't fixed it, is being able to throw combinations and letting your hands go. That is a problem he has struggled with for quite some time now, especially as the type of gifted athlete that he is. He shouldn't have that much of a problem, which is letting his fist fly, and he does. I think if he finds a moment where he has Strickland hurt, he has to capitalize on it. In the past, hasn't done that. Saturday night, he has to do it. I think he will, and I think he will win by a unanimous decision.
Yeah, I think Uriah is way more technical. Maybe that's why he doesn't put combos together because his strikes are so like pinpoint accurate that it's hard to really follow up with that because you don't know if you're going to drop a dude or you don't know how it's going to go. So maybe that's why he doesn't throw as many combos. But I do think this is a great fight nonetheless. I think we might have, and we didn't mention it before, TJ and Corey may have a fight of the year nominee. I'm not saying it is yet, but they're up there for sure.
Yep.
But I think we can have another type of 5-round brawl like we kind of had last week, and in this type of fight too. Granted, not the 2 biggest names as Corey and TJ, but it can be another fight of the year performance.
It also wouldn't shock me, Dorian, if at the end of Saturday night we're a little disappointed just because of the track record that Uriah Hall has shown. Because yes, he wins fights, but I think a lot of people, they criticize him. So that wouldn't shock me. But also, though, what I think is going to help this main event is that a lot of people are sleeping on this card as a whole because it's a little thin. And it's usually those cards where not too many people are overly impressed with them the week leading up that over-deliver. So, look, it wouldn't shock me whichever way this one pans out. I also don't think it helps that this one is going up against a stacked Bellator card either.
Right, and we should get into the Bellator card. You know, this upcoming week we have the Pitbull defended his 145 belt in the Grand Prix final against A.J. McKee. That's going to be a banger of a fight. I know you wrote a couple articles about them prior. How do you see this fight going down? Like, this is going to be a good one.
Needless to say, there is no love lost between Patricio Pitbull Freire and A.J. McKee. They just had their press conference, almost went to blows. Leading up to this fight, I want to say this. In my estimation, Patricio Pitbull is the best 155-pounder walking on planet Earth right now. That's including the UFC 1 championship. 145, I might give a slight edge to Max Holloway, but Patricio Pitbull's right up there. And if he is able to win this fight this weekend against a stone-cold killer like A.J. McKee, we need to start having a conversation about Patricio Pitbull being the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. I'm not saying he will be or he is, but he needs to be in the conversation because that's how good A.J. McKee is. And to give my prediction, Dorian, I think A.J. McKee is going to win. The reason being, wherever Pitbull is good, so is A.J. McKee. And A.J. McKee is not afraid of the moment. He's 17-0, obviously has fought 17 times as a pro. All of those fights have been in Bellator. He's not afraid of fighting on big cards because he's been there. He has done that before. He's not afraid of the moment. And I understand that Pitbull is coming off of an impressive submission win against a talented guy in Emmanuel Sanchez, who will be fighting Saturday night. And previously, Pitbull beat Sanchez by a decision in November 2018, and then he got it back in the rematch. But A.J. McKee is not Emmanuel Sanchez. A.J. McKee is just an athletic, gifted guy who is the number 6 ranked guy in Bellator, pound for pound. That's how amazing he is. His father, Antonio McKee, a terrific MMA fighter in his own right. Now he's in his 50s, and he's his trainer. I think this is going to be a terrific fight. A lot of people are overlooking A.J. McKee, and I think that's a problem.
And I don't see how you can overlook an undefeated fighter. But it seems people are just giving Pitbull the nod because, oh, it's Pitbull. We've seen him do it so many times. He's going to do it again. And not for nothing, Pitbull entered the Grand Prix and defended his belt twice already. So he didn't have to do that. He could have waited until McKee won the Grand Prix. But now they're meeting in the finals, and it's for the belt, and it's for the $1 million. Like, I think this is going to be one of the best Bellator fights of all time. And I say that because I do think AJ gets the win as well. I think he's going to knock him out because this kind of reminds me of Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo, how Conor was in his head, he was in his head, and the fight happened, and it was just like, oh my God, like, how did he do that? I feel like this is going to be the same type of fight because AJ's been talking, and you can see it's getting in Pitbull's head. I watched the Countdown show today, and he was saying he talks a lot. His father talks a lot. The first thing he said to me was like, you better be ready. I'm coming for you. And AJ's like, that's not talking. Like, I'm just telling you, you're the champ. Like, you should be used to this. What is wrong with you? And I feel like AJ is just too confident. He's so flashy, and he has that weird choke that he pulled off. I don't even know what that's called, to be honest. But he's just so innovative. He's so all around well-rounded. I think Pitbull, probably a better striker than Pitbull, if we're going to be real. So if he takes the trash talk a little too personal, I think he's going to come in, fight a little over-emotional. AJ's going to catch him, maybe a 3rd, 4th round knockout.
I see this ending in a very close split decision. I think it's so hard to stop someone like Patricio Pitbull. He's amazing. Might go down as one of the greatest Bellator fighters in history. But A.J. McKee, his time is now. And I think Patricio's best fighting weight class is 155, not 145. And I think having to shave off those extra 10 pounds, another fight like he did in April, I think that favors A.J. McKee. A.J. McKee just submitted Dorian Caldwell. Dorian Caldwell is not an easy guy to submit. He's only been submitted 1 or 2 times prior to that. For A.J. McKee to do that, it's outstanding. McKee can finish you if he wants, can submit you. If it's a stand and bang, a trading situation, he can do that as well. And I think A.J. McKee can go all 5 rounds. This is going to be a very close fight. And what we need to talk about, when we talk about the greatest fights in Bellator history, usually they include someone like a Fedor Emelianenko who's a little bit longer in the tooth, a little bit older. Their prime has passed them a bit, but they're still competitive. A.J. McKee, Patricio Pitbull, these guys are in their primes. This is a fight that the UFC would be proud to put on. This is a fight that if the UFC had a chance to put a fight like this on, in a drop of a hat, they would do it. But they can't because it's Bellator. And This might be fight of the year. And I hate putting expectations like that on a fight. But again, this is the biggest fight in Bellator history. In terms of implications, this might be the biggest fight of the year just because you have a double champion in Freire trying to defend his 145-pound featherweight belt against someone like A.J. McKee, who, if it wasn't for Patricio Pitbull, he would be the champion. There's a ton on the line here, and I just love it, Dorian.
Yeah, and I mean, you say you don't like to put those type of expectations on it, but let's be real. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. The hype is behind this fight. You know, there's a whole bunch of hype. You know, it's definitely going to be a great fight. Pitbull doesn't put on bad fights. AJ doesn't put on bad fights. But Speaking of people who don't put on bad fights, my boy Michael Venom Page, MVP, is getting to run it back with Douglas Lima. That got announced over the weekend. So obviously Douglas Lima got him the first time. You know, he was the undefeated fighter coming in, crazy aggressive style, super awkward, gets his foot swept, knockout, one of the craziest knockouts you'll ever see. I don't know who you have in this fight. We don't have to make predictions right away, but as it stands now, I think I have MVP fairly easily in this fight. I don't know if I'm crazy. Tell me if I'm crazy, Mike.
I think you're a little crazy. I think so, because yes, Douglas Lima was dominated by Yaroslav Amosov, but he did defeat Michael Venom Page. I understand it was crazy circumstances. MMA is a crazy sport where you make one mistake and your lights are put out. That's what happened. That's a perfect example of what happened when Michael Venom Page and Douglas Lima fought the first time. But I just think Lima has the competitive advantage. He was the champion heading into that fight as well as the Amosov fight, and I think he will be able to get that momentum back.
The thing is, I feel like he's, like you said, he was a champion, but he then lost the belt, or he lost the middleweight belt to Gegard Mousasi.
Well, that was a vacant belt, though. He didn't have the belt. He fought for it, so I don't really blame him for that.
Okay, but he lost the fight, and then he comes back to defend his belt and gets dominated by Yaroslav. So that's why I'm favoring MVP. You know, MVP's 5-0 since he's been knocked since they lost, and he's only had one of the fights go to the cards. So he's still knocking people out like he used to. The head kick that broke a guy's nose, and
Derek
they had
Anderson.
to stop. Yeah, they had to stop the fight in the middle. Like, he's on another level right now. I don't know. He's talking about flirting with coming to the UFC. If he gets a big win over Douglas Lima, maybe he can go to the UFC, get a big payday if he redeems himself. I don't know about you. I would love to see it, and I can't wait to see it.
I want to say this because that's not my official prediction because it's so far away.
Right.
But I think if you're looking at Lima and Michael Page, I think they had a sigh of relief when they found out they were fighting each other and not having to fight Yaroslav Amosov again or Jason Jackson, because those two guys are grappling phenoms. They are so hard to evade and defend their takedowns. Now they know what they're getting themselves into. This is going to be a striking affair. And look, it's in Michael Venom Page's home territory. It's at the SSE Arena. That's in his backyard, and that favors Michael Venom Page.
Yeah, you can't get any better than that. It's in his backyard. Like, this is set up for him to just do something amazing, redeem himself, redeem the only L in his career, for being honest. So, granted, they say he fights cans. I don't like to get into all that. They're all professional fighters, you know. Yeah. But we missed something. I noticed. Now I'm thinking about it. Speaking of, so over the weekend, Conor McGregor had put out a few tweets. One of them, he was implying that, you know, if the good defeats the evil at all times, which is what Khabib had said when Poirier had beat him in the trilogy, then he said basically some stuff about his father passing away. I don't want to get into it, but it was some very dark things. Conor obviously is on the sideline right now with the broken leg, but even with the surgery, Mike, how did you feel about those tweets? And if it made you react, what was the reaction?
It's abhorrent behavior. And my reaction, it was a head scratch. Essentially, I thought to myself, what are you doing? What are you doing, Conor McGregor? You have all of this money in the bank. Yes, you lost to Dustin Poirier, but you should be better than that. And clearly you're not. And you know what? I don't blame Conor McGregor. I blame myself. I blame all the other people who watch his fights because they allow this to happen. And the reason why I blame myself and everyone else in the MMA community is because if any other fighter would have said something like this, they would either be suspended by a state athletic commission, suspended or cut from the UFC. Their management team would let them go, and the fans would bash them. Imagine if John Jones, at the height of his animosity and beef with Daniel Cormier, would have said something like that. It's disgusting behavior.
That would have been crazy.
But you know what? We allowed Conor McGregor back in with open arms. And like I said, I'm the problem because in a year from now, when Conor fights again, I'm going to buy his fight. And it's a shame because, like I said, if any other fighter would have done this, cut ties. It's over. But since it's Conor, we allow him to make excuses. All right, that's fine. We allow him to talk about Dustin Poirier's family and his wife. All right, fine. We let it slide. But now this, and to me, Conor McGregor comes off as a hypocrite. Here's why. He donated millions of dollars, or I don't know if it was millions, but it was a large sum of money for COVID relief in Europe. And now you talk about someone who passed after you just raised all that money? Are you kidding me? I just don't think it's fair for him to say that whatsoever. And Dorian, what really scares me, I don't know where this is going to lead the relationship between him and Khabib, because right now it's non-existent, their relationship. They despise one another, but I think the next time they come across one another, it might get ugly.
Yeah, I think even without the tweet, if they came across one another, it would get ugly personally. But like, I'm glad that you brought this up. I'm the problem because I also am the problem because I am a Conor McGregor fan. I would call myself a Conor McGregor fan ever since he's blown up. Fought one of my favorite athletes of all time, Floyd Mayweather. I'm hooked. You know, he can sell a fight. I'll give him that. He's an entertainer, super entertaining guy. But let's not lose track of who he is. I'm not going to get into some of the allegations, but the things that have been proven against him, he punched an old man in the face at a bar. You know, that's not cool. You're a professional fighter. You shouldn't put your hands on anybody. Your hands are licensed. You know how to use your hands better than the average person. That you can really hurt someone, especially an old man. That it was nasty. But then the thing with Khabib, you throw a dolly through a bus full of fighters. What if Conor McGregor was on that bus and someone threw a dolly and glass broke his hand or got in his eye and he missed his fight? Conor McGregor would raise hell. But when he does it, everyone champions him and like he's so macho and he's made all of this money and you can't tell him anything. You know, Conor is one of those, he's a made man now. So he doesn't have to abide by the rules. Like you said, he should be suspended by the UFC. The UFC should come and make a statement against it. But they don't, because the UFC allows fighters to be fighters, and fighters sometimes say crazy things. Now, he did delete the tweet, so someone got in his ear and told him, hey, this isn't what we should be putting out right now. But other than that, has a track record of doing ridiculous things. And then he comes out and tries to be the nice guy. The second time he fights Poirier, oh, nice guy, I'm going to let me get some of your hot sauce. I'm going to, spend some money with your charity. Like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, the third fight, oh, your wife's in my DMs. It's like, wait a minute, what happened? Yeah. Like we said, and we bought the second fight and we bought the third fight. So who's the real problem here? I guess it's us. So is cancel culture ready for Conor McGregor?
You know what, Dorian? I'm not a proponent of canceling anybody. I think cancel culture is so stupid. But I do think someone needs to learn their lesson. And clearly Conor McGregor hasn't. There's a point in time where I don't think cancel culture has anything to do with this conversation. This is just being about a respectful human being. And I know the lines get blurred in the fight game because at the end of the day, you get paid to punch somebody in the face, right? Decorum goes out of the window. So right. I understand that. But at the end of the day, we let it slide when he broke his leg and was talking about Jolie Poirier because he broke his leg. He was hopped up on adrenaline. Lord knows what was running through his mind when Joe Rogan was interviewing him. And he called for Joe Rogan to interview him, by the way. Joe Rogan wasn't going to, but he was ushered by Conor to sit down and talk to him. So we let it slide. But now it's head scratching because you could say, oh, well, Khabib should never have tweeted in the first place. Look, Khabib's a grown man, has a Twitter account. He's allowed to tweet what he wants. And what he said wasn't bad.
And it was not for nothing. It's a UFC pay-per-view. He's the former champion in the division, beat both of you. He can tweet about your fight if he wants to. But carry on.
Absolutely. It's just at a point now where Conor is great when he's winning. When he's winning, oh my God, he's the greatest guy in the world. Everybody loves Conor McGregor. But when he loses, he's somebody you don't even want to speak to because he's just so bitter and angry. And from my perspective, Dorian, this just looks sad. It looks sad, and it looks like a cry for help. I don't know what's going on with Conor McGregor. I honestly don't even think he should have deleted the tweet, even though I know he didn't. From a PR standpoint, he had to delete the tweet. But why delete the tweet? Your true colors showed. You know you have millions of followers. The moment you post anything on social media, snapshots everywhere. Everyone is going to find those whether you delete it or not. So just keep it up. You're not going to make yourself look any better by deleting it. You showed your true colors, so just keep it up. That's how you feel about Khabib and his father. Don't act like a nice guy now.
Yeah, I mean, we all know it's the PR game. You have to play it to a certain extent. So I would assume that's why he deleted the tweets.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, it's nasty. But we can move on to another thing that it pains me, but not as much as those tweets. Amanda Nunes was defending her 35 strap. Oh, man, Juliana Peña. This was about to be one of the best fights. You know, Peña's been calling for Nunes, and she's been ready. And she was actually about to headline, actually, until Derek Lewis and Cyril Gane are now on the card headlining. Obviously, Derek Lewis is from Houston. So what are your initial reactions on that?
Selfishly, you want the fight to happen because it's Amanda Nunes. She's one of the biggest stars in the sport. But at the end of the day, the fight itself doesn't matter. What matters most is that Amanda Nunes is okay because she has a family. And I think at this point in time, COVID-19 has been in our society for well over a year and a half now. We have become desensitized to this disease, especially when it comes to athletes, because we never really talk about the effect the disease has on athletes. We more so only care because it's hindering them from playing or competing in said sport. I think what we need to focus on here is just the fact that Amanda Nunes gets out of this disease healthy. That's the most important thing. Her health is paramount at this point in time. The fight is secondary. Now, don't get me wrong. I hope the fight happens. I hope it happens in December or sometime before the end of the year. That's, I think, everyone's goal. I'm sure it's your goal too, Dorian. But if she's not healthy and this disease ravages her, hopefully not. I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, now we have another problem on our hands, which has happened to millions of people around the world. So I just think at this moment in time, we just have to just hope that Amanda Nunes is okay because it's no joke. And I know selfishly we want to see her fight. Everyone was going to tune into that card partly because of her as well as the heavyweight fight. But thoughts and prayers out to Amanda Nunes and her family. She's the mother of a newborn child, so that's scary too.
Yeah, you know, you never want to see anyone get COVID. Of course not. She is a few days. Excuse me. She is a few days in now, so I think she's doing well as it stands now. Again, thoughts and prayers out to the Nunes family. But as a fight fan, it just sucks, you know, because as a fight fan, I feel like most sports don't have to deal with just games getting rescheduled.
Yep.
Everyone's like, oh, like, you know, you can buy tickets to a basketball game. You know, okay, the Lakers are playing the Bucks, you know, our two favorite team. You know that. So you'll go to the game on that day. If someone's just like, oh, yeah, hey, the main event to this, you know, LeBron and Giannis are out of this game. Are you still going to go? Like, that happens so much in this sport. Mm-hmm. So when you hear about that, it's kind of ironic, actually. I thought about it. Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler, too, are on that card. And it is a 5-round fight. So now that's being moved up to co-main event as it stands. So it's kind of like a co-main event, 5 rounds, similar to how, Nate and Leon was after the 2 title fights. But yeah, again, thoughts and prayers to Nunes. Hopefully they can get this rebooked. Hopefully she doesn't have any complications with COVID, going forward. But one fight that did get booked, and I know you were very excited for it, and you said it was going to happen. And I feel like most of us knew it was going to happen. Once Dana says something, it's probably going to happen. Kamaru Usman, the Nigerian Nightmare, up against Colby Covington, Chaos Colby Covington. I'm going to say his name twice because he's back and he's got his title shot. He sat on the Tyron Woodley win. Mike, initial thoughts for that?
Dorian, this was the fight that had to happen at 170 pounds. I think if Leon Edwards didn't have such a close call in the Nathan Diaz fight, Leon Edwards may have received this fight. But I just think even before that fight, it was so close as to who was going to get that next opportunity. I think Colby got it. Part of the reason why I think Colby received this one and why Kamaru Usman wanted to defend his strap against Colby Covington for a second time, he wants to put Colby Covington away because he knows for as long as he is not fighting Colby Covington, Colby's going to keep talking. He's going to keep doing interviews. He's going to keep using his social media platforms to talk about Marty Fake Newsman, as he likes to say, although I just think that's a terrible nickname, but that's what he calls him. But if you're Kamaru Usman, okay, you know what? I'll get to Rocky Edwards later. I'll handle my rematch with him later. Let me get to this guy because he's been talking nonstop even after I hurt him and stopped him in December 2019. Let's run it back. Let's fight in Madison Square Garden. And a lot of people may have forgotten about this or do not know this, but in November 2019, the card that featured Nathan Diaz and Jorge Masvidal, UFC 244, originally, that was supposed to be Kamaru and Colby on that card. But logistics, they weren't able to figure it out. It was pushed back to the next pay-per-view a month and a half later. Now, they get their chance to fight at Madison Square Garden. What better venue? What better fight? This is going to be a terrific fight. Now, you and I argued a little bit about a topic I want to bring up when it pertains to this fight, and that's pay-per-view buys. I think this fight easily will hit 700,000 pay-per-view buys because the first one did around 500, if I'm not mistaken, and Kamaru's last fight against Jorge, the rematch against Jorge Masvidal, did very well as well. I think this one will do even better. I think this fight is going to perform very well from a pay-per-view standpoint, a gate standpoint at MSG. Apparently November 6th is the targeted date. I think this is the right move that the UFC did.
Yeah, I think that I promised myself I would get through this segment and I wouldn't mention Leon Edwards. So I'm trying to stick to that.
Well, I did it for you, so you can talk about him.
I don't want to. Obviously, everyone knows Leon deserves a shot, but we all wanted to see the Colby rematch as well. I'm not gonna lie. As a fight fan, you want to see Colby. The fight was so close. How could you not want to see that again? So, and I told myself today, after today, I'm never gonna complain about another fight. Similarly, I'm glad we just talked about it because I was upset when Gon and Derek Lewis got booked, and I'm like, why is there an interim title fight? Like they're doing Francis wrong. But now I'm glad that, Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler isn't the co-main event. So I'm happy in the end. So, yeah, I wanted Kamaru to fight Leon again because Leon deserved it, and I think that would be a hell of a fight. But as of now, he'll sell more, and, while you have Usman, give him the biggest fights, biggest paydays, he's earned them. 700,000 buys is a lot, though. And I think Colby hasn't lost steam, but his gimmick kind of has. I think everyone can kind of tell it's a gimmick. But at the end of the day, he doesn't need it. Colby's a hell of a fighter himself. Like, I'm not trying to discredit Colby at all when I say that his gimmick's over, but I think that people know who he actually is and what he's doing. And it's not real. So a lot of people may not tune in just because of Colby. I think maybe more people will tune in because of Usman, if anything. And like you said, they are targeting MSG. I believe the reason they didn't do Masvidal Nate on the same card is because they wanted the BMF belt to be like a thing in the main event. So obviously you're not going to have a title fight after that. Or, you just brought up The Rock.
Yeah.
You got The Rock and the president to come out to that. Like, that was crazy.
I was there for the weigh-ins, by the way. At another publication, I covered the weigh-ins, and oh my God, Dorian, that whole weigh-in, the show was a sight to behold. But anyway,
yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was, but yeah, that would have been ridiculous if they had Kamaru and Colby on that card, and then I would have hoped the Jorge fight, knowing how it ended. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, but that controversial ending, kind of not really, Nate's scar tissue. He bleeds. We want to see Nate fight and finish the fight, but that would have been a crazy ending to a card. But I mean, yeah, I'm glad. It was a good week to be a fight fan. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of great announcements. Some of my favorite fighters coming back. And of course, unfortunate timing with the Nunes announcement. But at the end of the day, a lot of fights from this card actually got pulled. The co-main event, obviously Aspen Lab fight last week got pulled. But aside from that, Mike, is there anything else we need to feed the streets tonight?
Tune in next week, because next week's show is where we're really going to be focusing on the Cyril Gane Derek Lewis fight. And then 2 days later, so what would that be, 8 days from now or 9 days from now, will be our live show for UFC 265. So make sure you tune into that next week. But next week's show is going to be great. I can't wait to see what happens with Bellator 263. That is going to be an outstanding fight. I'm telling you right now, if you are a betting person out there, you may want to invest some money in A.J. McKee. Yes, I know Patricio Pitbull is the favorite, as he should be. But A.J. McKee's no slouch. Just look into it.
Exactly. And I've seen it's getting a little closer. The line's getting very close. I thought it was 110, 105 last time I checked. I'm a betting man, so I was about to put a little money on AJ as well. I thought he'd be an underdog. But when you undefeated, there's no underdog.
No.
But guys, make sure, again, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on our socials. My social right here at @DoRight_. Mike, your social?
At Michael Bray Daly on Instagram and Twitter.
Yes, sir. And make sure you, again, tune into us next week and our UFC pay-per-view live show. Anything else?
I think we're out.
Peace.
Get up, let me begin. This is CW.